Pope Francis asked forgiveness for the Catholic Church, the abuse of indigenous communities in Canada. In Haiti, at least 471 people were killed, injured, and missing as a result of gun violence. Greece and Poland and Spain canceled the European Commission's proposal to reduce gas demand in the community bloc. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The Pope Francis asked forgiveness for the Catholic Church's abuses of indigenous communities in Canada. On Monday morning, the Holy Father met with the Métis and Inuit indigenous peoples in the commune of Wasmakis as part of the first stage of what the Pope called his penitential pilgrimage. The Pope regretted the colonizing attitude of Europeans and the members of the Catholic Church when they arrived in the American continent. Pope Francis underlined that the destructive approach against the culture of indigenous peoples in the region fostered the forced evangelization.
I am here among you because the first step of my penitential pilgrimage is to again ask for forgiveness and tell you with all my heart that I am deeply sorry. I ask for forgiveness for the ways in which, regrettably, many Christians adopted the colonizing mentality of the powers that oppressed the indigenous peoples.
At the beginning of his penitential pilgrimage, the Pope Francis urged to remember the painful chapter of the government-run schools, managed by the Catholic or Anglican religious, where at least 6,000 minors died.
I am sorry. I ask for forgiveness, in particular for the ways in which many members of the Church and of religious communities cooperated, not least through indifference, in those projects of cultural destruction and forced assimilation promoted by the governments of that time, which culminated in a system of residential schools.
And this Tuesday, Cuba celebrates the 69th anniversary of the assault on the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Céspedes military headquarters on July 26, 1953, a date known on the island as the National Bravery Day. The commemorations were held in the Plaza de la Revolución in the south-central city of Cienfuegos. That central province was chosen and awarded as the venue for the celebration due to its progress in the political, economic, and social spheres, despite the impact of COVID-19 and the tightening of the U.S. government's blockade against Cuba. On Monday, the President of the Republic and the first Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party, Miguel Díaz-Canel, toured the key economic and social points of the city, among them the Carlos Manuel de Céspedes thermoelectric power plant. The president also held a meeting with some 200 solidarity activists from Puerto Rico and the United States, grouped in the 32nd Pastors for Peace Caravan, the Juan Rius Rivera and Venceremos Brigades, and the Socialism and Liberation Party. Díaz-Canel also participated in a cultural gala held at the Tomás Terry Theater called Cienfuegos, Dreams and Hopes, alongside other government officials. On July 26, 1953, a group of young people led by Fidel Castro, later identified by history as the Centennial Generation after the birth of national hero José Martí, led the insurrectional actions in Santiago de Cuba and Bayamo. Although the assault failed, Fidel himself described the act as a political victory because it was the first spark in the Cuban Revolution. We move on to other topics. In the United States, a shooting was recorded at an airport in the city of Dallas in the state of Texas. Authorities reported that a 37-year-old woman entered Love Field Airport in Dallas, where she opened fire on the premises. Officials said the shooter was wounded by a police officer and was taken to a city hospital. Reports from the independent agency Gun Violence Archive also detailed that 369 mass shootings were reported in the country so far in 2022. In Panama, the single dialogue table, including unions, social organizations, and the national executive, reached the first agreements for the reduction of the prices of at least 70 products of the basic food basket. The Panamanian government agreed to reduce the cost of part of the basic food basket by 30%. To this end, it will implement different complementary measures to establish the price limit and the tariff reduction with a marketing margin control. The government delegation committed himself or itself to include 72 products to this measure, with price limit, marketing margin, and subsidies. In this sense, it was agreed that the price caps will be established in an executive decree and will be in effect for 6 months, which can be extended. In an exclusive interview for our multi-platform TeleSUR, the Panamanian Union leader Saul Mendez, the General Secretary of the Construction Workers Union, Sontrac, expressed that they have managed to establish a dialogue with the government.
To put, as this poverty said, a finger on the sore spot to a political, social, and economic model that only benefits 115 ultra-millionaires in Panama, who accumulate over $20 billion and puts the Panamanian people on the ropes in a really miserable conditions, and that must end once and for all. This is an effort of the people, of the popular organizations already mentioned, and therefore of the capacities that we, the leaders of the popular movement, have put in order to open the necessary channels of transformation, first of the economic model and secondly to the urgent situation of the Panamanian people.
In the same context, Mendez also stated that the popular movements have pressured to the government to change the situation of the Panamanian people.
On the other hand, the issue of corruption affects the three powers of the state, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary, and in turn the Panamanian people. It is time to talk about an original constituent assembly. We have made a proposal, and self-convened to take over state powers and draft a new constitution to found a new state. That this constitution be submitted to the popular will and from there define the rules of the game so that the Panamanian people may have a dignified life, building a different society than the one we have today.
In Haiti, at least 471 people were killed, injured, and missing as a result of gang violence in the last 9 days. The United Nations organization informed through a statement that these are the latest reports between July 8th and 17th, while regretting the violent events in the Caribbean nation. The UN indicated that some 3,000 inhabitants had to flee their homes due to the conflict between the armed gangs. In this context, the various humanitarian agencies have begun to assist the most vulnerable people, detailing that the security situation in Haiti continues to be deficient. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Greece and Poland, as well as Spain, canceled the European Commission's proposal to reduce the gas demand in the community, in the bloc, by 15% until April 2023. Poland will not agree to reduce the gas consumption, as other European Union countries have agreed to do, Polish Climate and Environment Minister Anna Moskwa told the press conference. Greece did not accept the European Commission's proposal either, said Greek government spokesperson Yanis Economou, as the European Executive's plan implies a much greater reduction of the 24%. The Spanish government said that they do not agree with the idea, as they are not so dependent on Russian gas, to require their citizens to reduce consumption. On July 26, EU energy ministers will discuss in Brussels the measure proposed by the European Commission. More than 1,200 people were rescued in the central Mediterranean Sea over the last few days as good weather offered perfect conditions for the sea crossing from the northern Africa to Europe. Various operations were carried out by 2 international charters, the Italian Coast Guard and the several merchant ships during the weekend. Italian vessels recovered 5 bodies and rescued 674 people packed on a fishing boat adrift off the Libyan coast. The separate operations, the German charity Sea-Watch said it rescued 444 migrants trying to cross the Mediterranean. Sea-Watch 3 carried out 5 operations over 24 hours. SOS Mediterranee said its rescued ship Ocean Viking saved 87 people, including 57 unaccompanied minors. According to the UN Refugee Agency, 1,234 people have died at the sea while attempting to cross it. Now we move on to other topics. Russian Ministry of Defense confirmed that the strikes near the port of Odessa in Ukraine destroyed only military targets. According to the Russian defense, on July 23rd, there were attacks aimed at military targets, and thanks to the precision of the attack, only these were destroyed. It detailed that a Caliber cruise missile destroyed a Ukrainian military vessel in the dock of the naval repair plant, while a second missile hit a warehouse of Harpoon anti-ship missiles supplied by the United States. For their part, Ukrainian authorities accused Russia of destroying with warehouses unrelated fatalities and facilities. This was spread by the international media despite the fact that the videos of witnesses refuted, showing that the facilities of the port of Odessa were not damaged at all. In his visit to the Congo, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the target of the attack in Odessa was a Ukrainian military vessel and an ammunition depot.
As for the objectives targeted by high-precision strikes, they are located in a separate part of the port of Odessa, in the so-called military part of the port. And the targets were a Ukrainian military vessel and a munition depot, where the Harpoon anti-ship missiles were recently delivered. They were delivered in order to threaten the Russian Black Sea Fleet.
The Russian diplomat also stressed that there are no obstacles for them to start the delivery of Ukrainian grain in accordance with the agreement signed in Istanbul.
Objectives experts confirmed what we had said from the beginning, that the grain terminal of the port of Odessa is at a considerable distance from the military unit. There are no obstacles for the grain to start being delivered to the customers in accordance with the signed agreements in Istanbul, and we have not created them.
Now we address other topics. The Geophysical Institute of Ecuador registered this Monday 2 earthquakes with epicenters in the province of Carchi, bordering with Colombia. The institute reported that the first quake had a magnitude of 5.2 on the open Richter scale and occurred at 8:33 a.m. local time, 12.62 kilometers from San Gabriel in Carchi. The second quake occurred minutes later with a magnitude of 4.1 and 16.3 kilometers away from the city. Preliminary reports from the ECU 9100 Integrated Security Service indicated that the earthquakes damaged 18 homes in 3 districts of the province, as well as receiving reports of 5 people with nervous breakdowns and 1 person injured by the fall of a wall. In the United States, a destructive wildfire near Yosemite National Park continues to burn out of control and has grown into one of California's biggest blazes of the year. Thousands of residents were ordered to flee remote mountain communities. Some 2,000 firefighters are battling the oak fire, contending with steep terrain and hot weather. The blaze erupted on Friday southwest of the park in Mariposa County. California's fire department described explosive fire behavior on Saturday as the flames made runs through the bone-dry vegetation caused by the worst drought in decades. The blaze had consumed more than 57 square kilometers of forest land. A massive sandstorm hit northwestern China's Qinghai province recently and trapped tourists for hours. The sandstorm appeared in the Haiti region of Qinghai province last Wednesday before it advanced to the east of the region with the help of the westerly wind, state broadcaster CCTV said. In Chaidan town, Haiti region, wind speeds reached 14.9 meters per second. During the sandstorm, wall visibility was less than 200 meters, according to CCTV. The sandstorm swept through the region. On Sunday, heavy seasonal rains drove flash floods through Yemen and left at least 16 people dead. The casualties were reported in the capital of Sana'a and the southwestern province of Damar, where it began raining late last week. In Damar also, at least 6 people were killed when the floods swept away their vehicle late on Saturday. 3 more children were dead after heavy rains damaged their home in the capital's district of Moain, and a 4th child was critically injured. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. On Monday, thousands of protesters from different sectors marched in Manila, Philippines, hours before President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. delivered his first State of the Nation address. Marcos Jr. delivered his first State of the Nation address with momentum from his landslide election victory, but he's hamstrung by history as a ousted dictator's son and daunting economic headwinds. Over 20,000 police officers, anti-riot contingents, and troops were deployed within metropolitan Manila, where a gun ban was imposed to secure the late afternoon ceremony before a joint session of the Congress at the House of Representatives. Protesters carried placards and effigies resembling Marcos Jr., calling for the government's attention on issues they say are most urgent, including taming the inflation and respecting the human rights.
I am here to stand with the basic sectors, particularly the workers and peasants who want to hold Marcos accountable for his family's crimes. But we are also here to reject his illegitimate rise to power. No, we do not think Marcos is a legitimate president. He won through widespread cheating. He used ill-gotten wealth to where he is, and we will not allow him to take power without the people protesting everything that he and his family have done in the past and continue to do. We should not let this pass.
In India, Draupadi Murmu, age 64, was sworn in as president on Monday, making her first and the first person from one of the country's marginalized tribal communities to serve as the head of state. She is the second woman and the youngest person to occupy the post. The former school teacher and the state governor was elected to the largely ceremonial position last week with 64% of the vote by members of India's parliament and the state assemblies. Murmu, from the Santal tribe, born in eastern Odisha state, paid her respects to India's independence hero Mahatma Gandhi at a memorial in New Delhi before her inauguration. Murmu said her election will give hope to those left behind by India's recent economic growth. Analysts said the move will likely help Prime Minister Narendra Modi extend his base among the poor tribal communities ahead of his re-election bid in 2024. Iran said on Monday it will not be rushed into a quick deal reviving the 2015 nuclear accords with world powers.
They demand that Iran makes a quick decision, insisting that time is limited and Iran must respond quickly. The fact is that Iran does not act in haste. Iran will not sacrifice the country's and the nation's fundamental interests with a rushed process. If the U.S. acts constructively and in good faith like Iran and responds favorably to Iran's positive initiative, we believe that an agreement can be reached.
On Monday, Zimbabwe launched gold coins to be sold to the public in a bid to tame runaway inflation that has further eroded the country's unstable currency. The unprecedented move was announced by the country's central bank, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, to boost confidence in the local currency. The central bank disbursed 2,000 coins to commercial banks on Monday. The first batch of the coins was minted outside the country, but eventually they will produce locally, according to the governor of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, John Magduya. The price of the coins will be determined by the international market rate for an ounce of gold, plus 5% for the cost of producing the coin. At the time of the launch on Monday, the cost of Mozi Oa Tunya coin was $1,823.
Basically, government is introducing an alternative store of value, alternative to the US dollar. As you know, we are in a chronic inflationary environment, so the Zim dollar can no longer effectively serve as a store of value. So there's been a huge demand for the US dollar as a store of value and even for transactional purposes. So by introducing the gold coins, government is providing an alternative store of value, which should help to moderate the very high demand for the US dollar.
TeleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on the screen are in place since July 1st. Quite soon, further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now, more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other farther away nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.